Alrighty, hello and welcome. So I'm going to do something a little different for this channel. I usually do pretty much only Last Epoch content, at least I have in the past year or so. But we've come across this really surprisingly good game that just released in early access a few days ago. About a week ago, actually, I think someone pointed out to me in my Twitch stream. And I've been excited to play it ever since. The last 3 days or so, I put in over 20 hours, and I think it's a really good game overall, so I want to do a review on it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just give it an overview of Slormancer, the Slormancer. Some of the things I think are key features of this particular game. It's an ARPG, a single-player ARPG that is, as you can see, pixel graphics. But it's got a lot to offer, so we'll cover what those are. After that, I'll go through the pros and the cons and tell you what I think about the game overall. And yeah, so I think this game will be very interesting to people who play Last Epoch. So let's get into why I think that is the case, or the particular mechanics of the game that make it so. So the first thing you have in this game is you've got yourself a skill tree. It's actually more like a skill grouping. It does have trees built into it, but they don't perform like, say, Last Epoch skill trees. Basically, what you do is you pick skills. You can have a left one and a right one, and you use it, and as you use it, it gains XP, different than LE, because it's on use instead of just on your bar or on your skills and spec slot. So if you're coming from LE, that'll be a little different. But as you do so, some of these unlock. You can see here this stuff is locked because I haven't got the masteries yet for it. And you can start to pick one skill from each section, or one part of the skill from each section that you want to add to it. And you can start to invest in it with what's called Slorm. Slorm is this sort of currency you get from killing enemies and defeating rifts, which are a part of the gameplay loop. And so you can get some pretty interesting builds just from this system alone, picking the two skills you want. And on top of that, you pick a specialization at level 10, which unlocks a support skill, which is in your spacebar, and has its own skill system. So I picked the Phlegmatic Caster, and I've got the Time Warp. And you can see I've not even finished it, actually. I haven't unlocked the last tier of it, because it's not used very often, so it takes a lot longer to level. But there are a lot of interesting options in here, like increasing passives, like general passives, or increasing the specific skill itself, particularly in these skills over here. In fact, they can also interact with each other, interplay with each other. There are sub skills like Remnants and Arcane Clone that can interplay with each other between skills. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot of build diversity just from this system alone. But this is like the very first part of how this game builds out a build or a character. After the skills, we actually have the attribute section, which should be very familiar, or seem very familiar to most ARPG players. Basically, you pick a stat type. You get 1 point per level. There's 40 levels currently in the game, 100 at 1.0. And it has particular stats you get for putting a point in, but there's also these thresholds where you gain bonuses. So I've picked currently to put in the bravery section, which increases my movement speed. It gives me Slormfine, which is that currency. It's got there's some like diamond shaped ones that give you even larger bonuses. Like it's got the Slormfine, the move speed, elemental damage for every legendary equipment you're wearing. I did mostly this one right now because I'm farming, so I've got like magic item quantity over here. That's the biggest reason, but I also go faster. It's just a lot easier to farm. Each one of these has its own setup, so certain thresholds might be worth getting, and then you might go into another one, or maybe you just stick all in on the same one. And you're not just limited to points on the leveling. We'll talk about gear a little bit later, but like all these different colored ones here are actually coming off my gear. So this is the 40 from the levels, and then this is from the gear itself. So that's another feature on top of it. Pretty easy to understand, but definitely add some power. Then there is something that will, on first glance, probably looks similar to PoE, but I promise you it's not that similar. Yes, it's very large, which makes it look very scary, but each one of these is the actual node. So there's not nearly as many things to invest into as there is in PoE. And what you do here is you will obtain through the story these ancestral stones, and you can put them in and take them out like this. So you take one out and you put it in, and when you put it in, it activates the skill or the passive that's in the center. In some cases there are actually two, like you see there's two here. And from there you can invest in them with your Slorm. So this one's got 7 out of 10 invested in it from the Slorm. This one's got 8, and this one's capped at a 10 of 10. As you invest in them, they become stronger. You have to invest 1 in it to actually get it. But then from there on, you're just actually upgrading it. These connect to each other, so you have to have one that connects to get. So if I take that one out right there, I lose this one. If I put this one in, I can connect to here, or I can connect to here, or I can connect to here. So you actually have to kind of go up a tree to do it. You can't just, you know, grab whichever ones you want to. There's definitely some thought that goes into what you're going to take in the first one, the second one, so on and so forth. Unfortunately, right now, there's a total of 7 tiers in it that are all built out, but you can only go two levels so far into it, because you only get 2 ancestral stones, because they only give you that many in the story. The story is currently only one of like 5 chapters. I do kind of wish you could go further, but that's what we've got for now. It still provides a surprising amount of ability to theorycraft and to experiment. You can see I've got quite a few points in a lot of different places here, and that is, as I was experimenting with it, I switched to different things. Also, like this one here actually is useful for me. This is more for my farming, and this one would be more for my pushing. So there's a lot of value in actually investing in multiple places. And then as soon as I want to go and I actually want to do a push, I just take them out of this, I put them into this, and I've immediately finished. That's another great feature of this game. It's a pro that I need to remember to list later. If you like to experiment and to theorycraft and to just test things, this is probably the most friendly game I've ever seen as far as an ARPG. There's very little punishment to respecking in any of the systems. The most there is like, if I was to respec all of my Slorm out of all of these, I would lose 10% of it. That's about as bad as it gets. And you can, like this system here, it costs me nothing to do that. It doesn't cost me anything at all. So there's a whole lot of flexibility in how you make your builds throughout this entire system. Okay, next, let's talk about the gear, because the gear is in two different places. First off, we'll talk about kind of the star of the show, I guess you can say, although honestly, the whole gearing system is really good. But these are Slorm Reapers, and you collect these by defeating rifts, and there's a small chance that each rift will drop a Slorm Reaper. And there's like 360 of these in the game. I'm not kidding. There's a ton of these in the game. There's 15 pages of these things. And there's one section for each of the class. This is the warrior one. This is the ranger one, and then this one is what I play, the mage. You can see I've unlocked a good number of these, and as you unlock them, they all have different features. So the staff I have, you can see it has like mana regen on it, additional damage based on mana cost, raw damage based on mana generation. It's also got an active skill, an ancestral skill that goes into this bar here. By the way, I forgot to mention the ancestral tree and these weapons are where you pick up your ancestral skills, which are these 4 buttons here. You can see I've only got 2 right now. I've had up to 3. I've never had 4. It just depends on my build, how many I have. So you get potentially a skill from it or not. As you can see on this other one here, the Staff of Ferocious Affinity, I don't have any skills that it gives me, but it does have other stats that benefit me. And as you use these, as you equip them, they actually level. And they get stronger, and so the more you use them, the better they get. The staff I'm currently using is, does it show me here, level 61. The plus 14 is for my gear. This one over here is level 27. This is a level 1. It hasn't been touched at all. There's a lot of just progression in this system alone, because you have to level up your weapon, and then a new weapon might drop that you actually think is better for your build, but it's starting at level 1, so if you want to use it, you have to level it back up. And as you can see, there's still a whole lot of these I haven't even found. I've got a small number of them so far. I've messed with several of them. I currently have the one I think is the best, of course. But another one might drop, and I decide, you know what, that's actually a hell of a lot better than this one. I should switch. That could happen pretty much at any time. So far, I've only seen weapons for my class drop. I haven't seen anything for the warrior or the ranger at this point. So I think it is specific to the class you play, but you can play all 3 classes on the same playthrough, and you share gold and you share stash. So it's pretty easy to level up a new character if you want to, and farm all of them on the same playthrough and have all of them. The other part of the gear is here. This is just like a pretty typical character slot. You can see my weapons in here. And then I have all of this other gear that has all kinds of stats on it. I think, should we go through that here, the crafting section? Let's start with here. So here's how the stats basically work in this game. You can drop seemingly any rarity of this stuff. The rarities that show in the colors go up to this color here, which is a legendary. Legendaries have a legendary effect on them. That seems to be the only distinguishing feature of a legendary. You can have any number of the stat types. So you see I've got base, magic, rare, and epic on the yellows. Yellow does signify it's an epic. If you have an epic, you have to have rare, magic, base. To have rare, you have to have magic, base. To have magic, well, you have to have base anyway. So, and it can just drop with base. Legendary is this weird second one that just has a legendary effect on it. But the legendaries can get all of the other stats as well. So it seems like they can drop with all of those as well, or you can craft them on, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So you have your base stat, your magic stat, your rare stat, and then up to 3 epic stats. I haven't seen any more than that on any gear. So 1, 1, 1, and 3. And then you can see on the other side here, I've got like +2 time warp mastery, +2 bravery. I should have another stat in here. Yeah, +4 level of Smaller Slorm Reapers. That's actually not even good for my build, but what is, where are you? Level on Corey Ironbender Slorm Reapers. This is how I'm getting the extra +14 down here by having it on the gear. Those are all independent stats. This one's got all 3 of them. It's got the mastery skill improvement. It's got the Reaper skill improvement. It's got the attributes improvement. The only thing this is missing is epic stats and the legendary skill on it. And all of this stuff can be crafted, and you can get there even with a white. The crafting system is pretty simple. In fact, let's go to the crafting system now. I think we've covered this pretty well. Well, before I do that, let me just show you this, because this is pretty, I think this is impressive for a game that just came out in early access. That's a single player game with 2 developers. The stat sheet, so I have stats here. Here's some more stats. They all have their tooltips. Their tooltips are all really good. And then there's more. Yeah, there's just a lot of stats in this game, and they make sense. Some of them are pretty cool, like Ancestral Strike. You can only get this if you get a crit, so you have to get a crit, and then there's a chance that'll get an Ancestral, which will be a lot more powerful. And you have like a yellow is a crit, and then a red's an Ancestral Strike. There's a lot of interesting stats like that in here. Some of my favorites are probably the Ancestral Strike. You can do Pierce, Fork, and Rebound on projectiles. Melee's got this Overdrive and Inner Fire. Inner Fire is like a swirling fire around you. Some really interesting ideas here and concepts that all can be placed on your gear. Yeah, I'm really a fan of the itemization they've done so far. All right, let's go to the crafting, since it's such a natural transition. There's 2 places you craft. You won't be able to craft until endgame. You have to save some people in the endgame system. The first one is the Slorman expert here, and what he does is, as you are leveling, as you are just defeating enemies, your gear actually levels independently, just like the Reaper does, just like the weapon does. And when it reaches the point where it says ready to be reinforced, you can see that here at the bottom. You can put it in here, and then you need to have an appropriate type of these here, these Slormite chunks, or there's just Slormite. And this one's a 6, so I would need a 6 in here, so I put a 6 in here, and I can now reinforce it, which will add those stats in red. There's also a chance I'll critical reinforce it, which just adds some potential at the end. Instead of starting at 0, you start, I think, 15%. And then a double reinforce would actually take this from a +6 to a +8 instead of a +7. And if I do a higher level, and I think I have a higher level, yeah, if I put a tier 7 in here, it actually increases the chance that happens. So that's pretty cool. If you put something in here that's not quite ready, so let's say this one is only a 61% potential, I put this in here. And then, let's see, it's a tier 7. Let me see if I got something smaller. Tier 4, here we go. This one's only got an 84% potential. If I threw in here a tier 4 on this, I have an 84% chance to actually succeed. If I fail, nothing bad happens to the item. I would just lose the crafting material, and the potential would drop to 0. So I generally have let everything get to 100%. It's not really punishing to do so. And then when you get there, and you just do, let's see, is that the right kind? It's not the right kind. You get there, you put your +6 in here. There it is. And we activate it, and it's as simple as that. It goes down to 0 potential. You put it back on, you continue to level, and you continue to improve your gear that way. That's the first way to do so. It's a pretty simple mechanic, but it is pretty satisfying to watch your gear slowly get better. And it affects almost every stat. And the only stats it doesn't affect are like those ones at the bottom. So like it doesn't affect the legendary, it doesn't affect like, the bravery and the time warp mastery. But all the other stats are affected. The other crafter who is much more in depth is this guy, Friedrich. And what you do with him is you can pretty much do whatever you want with his crafting options. So if I throw this in here, I can reforge all of the scores. Scores are just like the numbers, like you have a numerical range. Like this is, for example, on armor, 447 is 638. I've got 632. If I wanted to like really be foolish and try to re-roll that and see if I get it higher than 632, I could do that. That's going to do it for everything though, the reforge all will. But if I wanted to do reforge normal, I can do that here. Then it's just going to re-roll the armor. I can re-roll the stats, and it tells you what the possible stats are. I also, you might notice, have raw damage locked on there. I could also lock armor. That way, if I wanted to re-roll on something, I would already have, that would just stay as it is. So if I locked that and then I did re-roll or reforge all scores, it wouldn't affect that stat at all. I can do the same thing for magic. I can reforge the magic score separately and the stats separately. I can lock that one in. I actually don't know why you'd lock magic or rare. I haven't figured out a good reason for that, except like maybe if you wanted to re-roll a whole bunch of stats all at once and you just wanted to make sure like 1 or 2 stayed. That's the only reason I can think of to lock it. But you can do the same thing with rares. You can add stats. You can add epic if you have the materials for it. You can see epic has a large range and it will roll anywhere from 1 to 3. And then you can do the same things with that one. You can reforge, in this case, your Reaper score, or add a Reaper score if you don't have it. You can do the same thing with the stat. You can do the same thing with the mastery. You can do the same thing with the attribute. So look at everything on here. Even add a legendary effect if you have the material and the money to do so. And then you can extract Slormite. I haven't done this. It seems dangerous. I'm not entirely sure how that part of it works. I'm sure there's a lot of value to it in certain cases. I haven't gotten that far though, but this system alone has like driven me to put in as many hours as I have, just trying to get my gear perfect, and we're still so far from it. But it's been really fun to continue to push the gear as far as I can. So really, really enjoying the crafting system. If you like crafting in a game, I think you'll really like this one. The last thing to talk about is the gameplay. So you have a story right now. It's just 1 chapter. It takes maybe a couple of hours to do it. It's pretty good. It's got some really good dialogue. I'm already through with this character. I won't spoil anything for you, but it's definitely a fun time. It progresses you into the end game, and then you get to the end game, and the end game is right now is literally just this. Is this guy here? You go talk to him. He opens up an expedition panel where you right now just choose your difficulty. You see him on I'm on Wrath 5 out of 10, and I could go lower, and my rewards go down, but so do the enemies. And the higher I go, the harder the enemies, but the rewards also increase. I will note that I feel like right now the rewards are not worth it. So like 20,000 max life multiplier for only a 100% magic quantity seems extremely low. But once you get to the point to where you can almost one-shot enemies, you definitely want to go up because the rewards are there. So I'll show you what the gameplay actually looks like. I think the combat's quite good right now. This is a character that's pretty far into the end game, but I think the combat is really satisfying, and it can definitely kill you if you're not careful. I have a couple of things I can do with this particular character. So one thing I like to be able to do is I can actually lock enemies in place, and I can maintain that if I want to, where they can't actually attack. I'm gonna do it to 3 at a time though, so there is a limit. If I get overwhelmed, I could be in trouble. But the enemies that are in the game right now are really enjoyable. They're really good overall. There's some mechanics that can definitely kill you for not paying attention. The diversity is pretty low right now because there's only that one story currently, or the one chapter in the story. But yeah, what is here I think is very, very good, and I look forward to seeing what the new stories bring as far as enemy types and their mechanics. So this is, yeah, this is the current end game. There's nothing else really to do. I'm surprised that I've gone this long with such a simple system, but really the gear drive and the build, making the build right, has really pushed me. And I it's not like the combat gets in the way. It's fun, but it's pretty simple right now. This is all there is really to it. All right, I'm gonna pop out of here. Actually forgetting how you leave when you're in the middle of this if you haven't finished it yet. There's a button. Can't run away from experimental content. Okay, let's finish these guys up. Oops, didn't mean to do that. That's okay. Won't take us too long. Okay, there we go. I don't think I can open this yet. No, so if you've done enough of these, the breaches are what you're doing here. You're trying to take out the breaches. The breaches give you rewards. We've done enough and we can actually just teleport to the next place or out without any penalty, but we'll just leave for now. There's no reason to continue on there. So that's the whole loop. You see at the end here, you get this, just a screen that summarizes what you've done. The influence just increases the kind of enemies that are in there, but honestly, after about like 5 or 6 influence, I haven't noticed any new enemies. I pretty much seem to be locked into the same number of enemies from that point on. So do bear that in mind. Like, if the end game is really important for you to be deep, it's not there yet. I'm finding the depth to be in the character builds. All right, with that being said, let's go into the pros, then we'll go into the cons, and then I do want to talk about their forecasts, because I think it shows that they understand the weaknesses of the game right now and are planning on resolving those. First off, the pros, that combat, I think it's really good. Just the combat loop itself is fun. It's not too fast, it's not too slow. It's not PoE, it's not even Chronicon level of speed, but it definitely does not feel slow at all. You are moving around constantly, fighting constantly, big numbers are going off. I think it's in a really good place for a game that has so few enemy types right now, and even area types. Build customization is definitely a strength. Between the masteries, the ancestral tree, and the Slorm Reapers, you can do a whole lot of different things with your build, and it's a whole lot of fun to do so. And the crafting and crafting progression is some of the best I've seen in a single player game for sure. Really enjoyable, pretty deterministic. There's not too much RNG in it, and you can't really, it's hard to brick an item. It's almost impossible to brick an item, and that's really fun for a single, in a multiplayer environment that would probably be too powerful, but for a single player game, it's, I think, in a really good spot. The visuals are surprisingly enjoyable. Yes, it is a pixel game, but the clarity of the game feels really good, and I think part of that is because of the text not being pixelated. You can turn pixel text on if you want to, but I've noticed that strains my eyes significantly. Also, in a game like Chronicon, I like Chronicon a lot, but Chronicon has so much going on all over the place that it definitely burns out my eyes after a while, along with its pixel text. This game just doesn't do it for me. I can play this game 8 hours a day and my eyes are totally fine, which was very surprising and in a pleasant way for sure. The other thing to point out in the pros, dialogue's really good, like surprisingly good. It's funny. These guys have a sense of humor, and it really shows. There's several times where I laughed at the dialogue. I thought it was just really well written. So if you like a good dialogue, I don't know about the story yet, we're only in chapter 1, but the dialogue's definitely there. Okay, cons. Mentioned the very simple end game. It's absolutely a con right now. It needs a stronger end game for sure if it's going to have more lasting power. Most of the ancestral tree being inaccessible. This is one of the ones that it's kind of I have a tough time understanding why they did it. Like, I get it, they want this stuff to be unlocked throughout the chapter, but you could have easily added in the end game ways of getting these ancestral stones so that we could have accessed more of this, because they say this is all done and it's just because the chapters aren't there. I would have really liked to play around with more of this ancestral tree. I'd like to see them add that before they get through all of the chapters, because it's going to take them a while. Just be able to really build out my build and then throw them into the chapter afterwards. I think that would be a perfectly fine thing to do and give us a lot more diversity in the game right now. So I'd like to see that change. It hasn't hurt it too much. Like, even having this is pretty noticeable, but it just makes me want more. Craft, that's a pro. No, that's a pro. It's only single player and there's no multiplayer planned, so bear that in mind. If you want a multiplayer experience, As of now, it doesn't look like you're going to get it from Slormancer. It could change in the future, but right now it's just not there. The only other thing right now that I have as a con is there's no resolution support above 1080p. I bring this up because someone in my chat really wanted higher resolution and does not want to play on lower resolution, and I get that. So if you're one of those people that's sensitive to, you have a 1440p monitor or higher, you definitely don't want to play at 1080p. You're going to want to wait in this game. The good news is they did announce recently, that's one of the things they plan on working on very soon, is both being able to scale the UI, which would help, but also actually adding support for above 1080p monitors. So hopefully that is a short-term problem that will be resolved. Okay, last thing I want to do, let's go back to the main menu. We talked about some of these cons. I want to show you why I'm not too worried about them, because the roadmap here, whoops, the roadmap here covers a lot of these things. So in July, it's planned to have breach events and a new endgame. Endgame was one of my big ones. Also, the new acts, new enemies, new bosses, enemy types. I didn't really mention the con, but you know, the enemy diversity is definitely a con for it. New ancestral tree tier, increased level cap. You only go to level 40 right now. Eventually, you'll be able to get to level 100. This is pretty much typical for all of these. It's new endgame, new feature, new enemies, new boss, new acts, new Slorm Reapers coming in. We already have 360 of those things. We're gonna get more. New ancestral tree tier, increased level cap. So most of my cons being around the simple end game, the ancestral tree tier, those are gonna go away as long as they follow this. And the only thing I'll have left is that it's a multiplayer game, or not a multiplayer game. It's only a single player game. And so if that doesn't bother you, that will be all I will have if this actually plays out in these endgame content that they're adding is really good. And I think it's gonna be like, it just looks like they have a good head on their shoulders as to what it takes to make a good ARPG. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this game does in the future. As it stands, if the relatively simple endgame loop that's currently in the game bothers you, like you really need more than that, then I would wait. If it doesn't bother you, it's like $13.50 right now. Absolutely worth it. I've gotten way more than $13 worth of game out of it already. So definitely give it a look if that is not a turnoff for you, the end game thing and the multiplayer thing. All right, that's gonna do it. I'll wrap this up now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy your time in Slormant if you decide to play it. Definitely let me know if this game is something that you are also enjoying, or if there's something I didn't mention here that you think is a con or a pro. I'd like to hear about that too. If you'd like to join us on our Slormite and Ellie adventures and any other game we play, I do stream on Twitch 5 to 6 days a week. Also have a Discord if you'd like to talk in there about Slormancer, Ellie, or any other game that is relevant to us. Thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again real soon.